I want to get your thoughts on this. Let's put the tweet up from Donald Trump this morning. He is none too happy with Paul Ryan, and you can't blame him. He says Paul Ryan should spend more time on balancing the budget, jobs, and illegal immigration, and not waste his time fighting the Republican nominee. What do you think about it?
Well, I think both of them would be better off saying different things and saying little. Donald Trump made a mistake with that Trump, and I think Speaker Ryan made a mistake by saying in that caucus conference call, which was going to leak, that he was no longer going to defend Trump and no longer campaign with him. He could feel that way, but there's a positive way of saying that. Say, look, in the remaining 28 days, I'm worried about our majority. I'm going to focus all my efforts on doing everything I can to have every member of our conference come back next year, and left the rest of it out. And Trump, it does not do him any good. It makes him look weak for him to go after Speaker Ryan. He ought to recognize the political reality that the responsibility of the Speaker is not to elect the presidential candidate, but to keep the Republican majority. And similarly, the responsibility of the Senate Majority Leader is to keep the Republican Senate majority, not to be responsible for the presidential ticket, particularly since Trump has said over the course of the campaign, quote, party unity is overrated. He's the guy who said that for months, May, June, July, said, I don't want Ted Cruz's endorsement because I don't need it. So having disavowed party unity and party loyalty as a reason to be for everybody to be together, he ought to play this down, and similarly, Paul Ryan should have played it down.
You know, Karl, don't you think there's an irony, though, in the fact that they circulated a pledge to all of the nominees and said, you have to sign this, you got to promise that you're not going to run as an independent. And in many ways, when, you know, the Speaker of the House rejects you, you're pretty much an independent at that point. Yeah. So perhaps the pledge, you know, should have gone both ways, that the support would go all the way through to the end. Look, I mean, I don't think, nobody thinks that video is more disgusting than I do, and probably most women in this country, and most men, I would hope, as well. He apologized for it. Did anybody think that this was, you know, did anybody not understand that the type of person that Donald Trump was? Had they not seen him on TV all these years? I mean, you know, to feign that they're so horrified by this that they are going to give up on all the other stuff that they care about, like Iran and Supreme Court picks and the border, is a little odd, don't you think?
I understand, but if you're a candidate running for office and you're asked to defend somebody, your nominee, who is talking graphically about grabbing women's genitalia, it's a problem. And that's a really awkward place for these candidates to be.
Agreed.
And Trump, and so are they supposed to say, oh, yeah, I'm for him despite that? They get to make individual choices. My point is this. Donald Trump is not the candidate who can make the argument, you all have to support me. Remember, in 2006, his largest political contribution of his entire life was to the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee to help elect Nancy Pelosi Speaker. In 2008, October of 2008, he says, well, I like George Bush's tax cut, but that was yesterday, and I agree with John Kerry about the Iraq War, and that's today. This is not a guy who has been a lifelong Republican and built up a traditional loyalty. He has given money to Hillary Clinton in 2008. This is not a guy who can say, look, you mentioned the pledge. How many times did he go on television and say, if you don't treat me fairly, whatever that means, I won't live up to the pledge? So I think everybody who's around this is better off by simply saying little about this and focusing on their own business. I think it was a mistake for Speaker Ryan to say, I'm not going to defend him and I'm not going to campaign for him. Just don't do it. But it's also a mistake for Trump to draw attention to this by picking a fight with his down-ballot Republican running mates rather than just focusing on his business.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, Republicans may find themselves with people just staying home, you know. I mean,
oh, absolutely. And the responsibility will be on both of their shoulders, principally on his, because he's the leader of the party and has to set the tone, but it's going to be on everybody's shoulders if that happens. And that's a real possibility here. I think the Republicans will keep the House, despite all of this. But this will have an effect in the Senate races, because in the Senate races, we have so many Republicans that are up in purple states that Barack Obama carried, as opposed to the House, where the vast majority of the Republicans in the House are in districts that were comfortably carried by Mitt Romney and will be carried by Donald Trump this time around.
You know, it also seems like they should be more focused on the issues. You know, they should be out there saying, look, don't even ask me about that videotape, okay, because I'm not going to comment on it. But what I do want to comment on is the Supreme Court.
I've said all that I'm going to say. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
absolutely. And our candidate ought to be focused on that. Think about this. We've now just spent a few minutes, valuable time, discussing Donald Trump's tweet picking a fight with Paul Ryan rather than saying, look at what he did yesterday to go after Hillary Clinton on Obamacare, or look at what he did going after what the Democrats are doing on regulation and energy and taxes. Instead, we're talking about something that is a sideshow for most voters who are up for grabs, and everybody would be better focused off following the McCollum rule and focusing on the issues.